From the front pages of your newspapers to the in front of your television screen. Welcome to the Headliner, where we take you through some of those trending stories of the week. And we also get to delve into some of those comprehensive reviews as we get to analyze and also understand how those stories trended. My name is Monica Chanda.
And my name is Kurtley Gwindi, and of course today we delve into a topic that has sparked widespread discussions and of course reactions trending in Zimbabwe and across the continent at large. And we are talking about none other than the National Youth Day, and so much has been spoken and covered in different media sects about this day, which is the 21st of February, where every year Zimbabwe commemorates a National Youth Day, a day set aside to celebrate the contribution of the youth dividend to the development of the country. And in studio today to talk about all this and more, we are graced by the presence of a young political analyst, a youth himself, and this is none other than Wilbert Muzarawetu. Wilbert, thank you for joining us here on the Headliner.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes.
It's also good to have a youthful guest on the show.
Yes.
And speaking about youth issues, Wilbert, you're not new to youthful conversations, especially when it comes to the economy and the political circles, a political analyst in your own right. And just recently, we did get to touch on some of those by-elections that were on the 3rd of February. Hopefully, in our conversation in the second segment, we'll also touch on the political side of things. But how has the political analyst side of things been for you as a youth?
I think there's been much going, and I've been trying, to understand, read, research, and get a better appreciation of what's happening within our borders, get a better appreciation of what's happening within the continent. As a young person, you get to be affected by these things. So it is important for you to be politically conscious and for you to be able to give a word which is fair, which has, a great analytic to it with research in it.
Well, nicely put.
And
let's get straight into those stories, Kurtley.
Absolutely.
So much to touch on. And we first start with the Financial Gazette, which reads Business in the State ahead of the key monetary policy statement. And it says markets anxiously awaiting the release of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, RBZ, impending monetary policy statement amid the escalating currency and inflation crisis. So that is definitely top on my agenda as a business journalist myself.
Oh, yes.
And let's throw it even to Wilbert in terms of business issues, the youth in terms of the economy, and why they should probably be interested in matters such as this, policy issues.
Well, I can safely say that the youth contribute to the biggest bulk of the population. According to the last census, you've got about 64% of the total population being the youth. So this is a rigid number of people that needs to be conscious of what's happening in the monetary policy, what's happening with the RBZ, because these people are going to be drawing loans from the Zimbabwean Power Bank. They're going to be drawing loans from wide coverage of financial institutions in the country. So it's good for them to know what is the weather in terms of financial institutions, like what is the interest rate, what is the government saying, and the government's policy should also be based on putting these bracket of people in terms of their capacity, capability, and some difficulties and challenges that they're facing, and they try to address them in the monetary policy.
Oh yes, and shedding some light on some financial literacy as well as consciousness around the youth. We now move on to a story that is still within the youth sect, which is the Chronicle tagging, saying youths make history. As a young Bulawayo startup firm, Science e-Learning has written in its unique piece of history by becoming one of the first companies in Africa to manufacture a mini computer prototype, with its products already being exported to countries like South Africa, speaking high level to innovation as well as technology. Coming back to you, Wilbert, perhaps your contribution with regards to seeing the demographics of youths continuously thriving harder, soaring further to ensure that there is a growth within the technology sector. We do know that we have policies like STEM, Education 5.0. However, how well contributing are these youths with regards to growing and innovation in Zimbabwe?
So what the Second Republic has done is to put the basics and the foundation in terms of how youth can accelerate in terms of innovation and industrialization. Talking about in tertiary institutions, we've got innovation hubs, we've got Education 5.0. It's a brainchild of the Minister of Higher and Tertiary, Professor Amon Muria, in the sense that it brings a platform, a breeding ground where ideas can be harnessed and can be put into something which is tangible, which can be able to be exported, like you've rightly put, and put in the market where companies can, buy and bid for that idea to be an initiative which can be consolidated and perhaps be further added in terms of value. So when you've got an educational framework which is in the rightful position, what you're now waiting is for the youth, for them to take the opportunity.
Oh, yes.
And now you need the backing of the financial sectors for them to be able to put money in these ideas so that there can be an output which is tangible and which can be able to contribute significantly to the gross domestic product of a nation.
All led by the youth.
Of course, by the youth.
Absolutely, quite exciting. Monica?
Well, definitely. I'm enjoying this already and can't wait for the second segment. But he also speaks to the issue around startups and entrepreneurship. I'm sure he will also get to capture us in that conversation.
Oh, yes.
But let's also turn to the daily news, which is tagged current Zim flu outbreak kills Mashonaland provinces among the worst hit. So the current outbreak of influenza, which hit the country a few weeks ago, has also so far claimed the lives of at least 3 people, laid low thousands others. Authorities also said that Mashonaland Central, Mashonaland East were among the provinces which had the worst affected by this latest flu flare-up. And it says the health minister, that is Honourable Douglas Mombishora, urging members of the public to take precautionary measures to minimize the chances of actually getting and spreading the virus. And in this very hot weather, talk about having an influenza, not quite the
Summer
best
flu
of
is the
times.
worst, Monica.
Not the best of times. There's sniffles.
It's always terrible.
But then a healthy nation is a productive nation.
Oh, yes.
And clearly we have a very healthy youth in
Yeah.
our studio.
And speaking about health, we don't want to take too much of our time. We want to stay healthy here on the Headliner, ensuring that we keep you captivated in the second segment, which is coming up, an in-depth conversation that we'll be having with Wilbert Muzarawetu, who will be sharing with us everything to do with this National Youth Day. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is the Headliner.
Welcome once again. This is the Headliner, and this is our second segment where we are joined by our guest who will be taking us through some very vibrant conversation. The nation recently commemorated the National Youth Day, and as the youth came together in their thousands, where this year's celebrations were in Masvingo province, over 30,000 youth gathered as they celebrated their youthfulness and celebrated the many achievements, as well as looking at some of the issues they would want revised. But our guest today, currently.
Absolutely. Our guest today is going to be unpacking all this and more. The headline reading from the Herald: to take up the challenge to develop Zimbabwe, youths are urged. Now, Wilbert, let's get into this utterance from His Excellency Dr. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who has challenged young people and young Zimbabweans to shoulder the burden of developing the country towards Vision 30. Let's unpack this particular statement, as well as the National Youth Day in Zimbabwe. How has it differed from the previous years?
I think what we can say is the president making deliberate efforts to make sure that, like I said, the foundation is there. You've got now a whole ministry that is dedicated for young people, which is the Ministry of Youth, Development, Empowerment and Vocational Training Centers. What it simply means is that there is a whole platform and a ministry that urges the youth to come up with ideas, to come up with, anything that is within their path of growth, to say what difficulties are you facing, and then the minister, Honorable Chinoman Chakaire, should be able to address them significantly and timelessly. So the whole idea is that the president is challenging young people in this country to say, for the backbone of this country to be able to stand up straight, the young people have to be capacitated, and this has been done by putting a ministry which has been allocated a budget by the Minister of Finance. So now what we want to see is young people coming forth, knocking the doors, and these innovations and innovativeness coming out and being seen out there. And the president was clearly, crystal clear in making sure that these young people need to understand that there are particular offices that they should be able to reach in particular areas of concern.
Okay.
Now, this year's commemorations, we do know in a presser from the Minister of Youth himself, Honorable Tinoma Chakaire, he did speak about the devolution agenda and making sure that no one is left behind. So deliberately making sure that commemorations in all provinces. Let's talk about even the events and even activities for this year, given that we did have this year at Fungai Jachi vocational training, which was in Masvingo. Speak to some of those events, some of those activities to commemorate National Youth Day that you saw, that you also experienced.
Yeah, we know you were there.
Yeah, quite right. I was very impressed. I think the new dispensation has been very much pragmatic about trying to make sure people understand the issue of devolution. They need to get down to the roots. Everybody needs to benefit to what's happening. It's no longer business as usual where commemorations and all the big events are taking place in Harare CBD. No, it's now, we are now going everywhere. Each and every province has to benefit. We saw a year ago the independence celebration, they were held in Bulawayo. So it shows that this youth, they're being taken to a vocational training center in the province of Masvingo. It's an idea to make people being conscious that we want them to be part of the deliberations, we want them to be part of the discussions amongst young people, youthful people, and the minister rightly, being at the center focal play to say this is what the youth are capable of. I could say from the images and from the videos that the President, His Excellency, was being showed things that were being done by the youth in that particular province and also in other provinces at large.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're tracking stories to do with perhaps the representation that you perhaps got an appreciation of in Masvingo. Does the gravitas of the youth that are present in Masvingo and perhaps in all these other areas you speak of, perhaps that have vocational training centers once again, do they understand their impact and power? Or is it just the everyday Harare youth who has access to information, who only understands because they are within the vicinity of the core of some of these ideas and some of these policies that are made around them in the immediate space? So how well has devolution been with regards to access to information? I speak as a journalist, I speak as someone who perhaps is interested in getting information out there.
Well, the major point which I can take is that devolution has already started, and it has been witnessed in several government and related projects, but there's still a lot to be done. That is a frank point. There's still a lot to be done, but the process of starting has been done, and we can only improve as time goes by and gets by to say this we can implement, this we can improve, but the whole idea of just starting to make sure that everybody becomes part of the national discourse in terms of young people, in terms of developmental agenda, in terms of trying to reach Vision 2030. We can't leave anyone behind, as the president rightly said, leaving no place and no one behind. So by doing so, we are deliberately making sure that everybody understands that they are part of the process, even though they might not be as much as exposed as the people in the urban areas or in the capital city. But we're saying we're making deliberate efforts to say what can we do to make sure that we equate the imbalances that have been there in the past. So if you see the Zimbabwe Youth Empower Bank, it has now been put across the branches, other than just being in Harare. It's now in Masvingo, also it's now in Mutare, also it's now in other several provinces, and it's making sure that it has a representation office in each and every province in this country. By so doing, you're making deliberate efforts to say, if you've got any financial aspect, an idea which needs a financial backing, this is your first port of call if you're a young person, if you're a youth in this country. By doing so, we need also to see institutions like Zimbabwe Youth Council also doing so and being seen on the ground, running around and flagging the efforts of the ministry, so that we can see the Vision 2030 of the president being attainable by having the youth being the center and focal point point of it, because they are the industrialists, with energy and with the education 5.0 that we have. We want to see the results coming from tertiary institutions, from the youth, at house, in the villages, bringing up initiatives, and then them being complemented and being backed by the ministry, and then us seeing it in the national development.
Okay. Now, this year's theme was actually positioning youth empowerment and development towards Vision 2030. And if we are to look at the demographic, 64% of the youth, 64% of the population are youth in Zimbabwe. Let's talk about their contribution in the development agenda itself, and even given their role, what role are they supposed to play as youth in the economy, in policy formulation, in the legislature itself? Because we've seen already there has been a deliberate approach, even under the Second Republic, to say there should be youth quarters, there should be youth initiatives, and so forth.
So starting from the legislature point of view, that deliberate effort to have 10 seats being left for young people, one per every province, it shows you the inclusion, the point where the new dispensation realized and understands that there is a pivotal role to be played by young people. So by doing so, we need to include them in each and every aspect and sector of this multifaceted economy. So we've got them now, 10 representatives in the parliament uncontested, and then we've got all these other constituents and places where it's open for them to contest with their competence, and with them being able to sell their ideas, they can also be elected there. So we already have seen a deliberate effort, and we commend that. And as young people and as a young person, I am very much happy to see that happen. Now, coming to the economy, it is also that the young people should not just wait to have initiatives being given to them or policies being formulated for them to say this is non-contested for young people. We should have people that have competence. This is an economy that wants to achieve a certain agenda of upper and middle income by 2030. So we are saying that what you're going to be producing, if it makes sense, let the business, the market forces sell and buy your idea by demand and supply. So we are now saying deliberately, make the young person be educated through Education 5.0, make the young person be able to access information and particular grants that are given, so that whatever they bring to the table is competent and deliberate enough to be able to be sold at a higher bidding price in the market. I think the new dispensation has been doing a foundational basis, and we expect to have a lot in the future.
Absolutely. Just speaking to empowerment there, I mean, from education all the way straight into getting into business itself. But I want to play a numbers game, and I'm going to throw this at you as we conclude this segment. You're talking 60% or 60+% of representation. Now, if we then say there is one within every province, which is just one youth who's representing, that's 10 uncontested seats. We proverbially say that. And we perhaps want to then interrogate if it's going to be above 50%. Why are there only 10 amongst the many?
I think the first issue to say is that in the past, there has not been that opportunity. So we are addressing something of the past first.
And it's,
so
it's bid by bid.
It's bid by bid. And then we are saying these 10 uncontested, and then the rest with competence, like I've rightly put, you can contest and you can win and you can be granted.
That's quite clear.
Competence is very key. But while we were speaking about the National Youth Day, lest we also forget one of the founding fathers of democratic Zimbabwe, the late former president, the first democratic president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe. And why we also get to speak about the 21st February movement, which we would have hoped to tap in with Wilbert. But so much to talk about. We are, after all, youth, so we always have so much to talk about.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Always a pleasure to be coming to your screens in the second segment. And of course, Wilbert, thank you so much for your contribution in today's episode.
Thank you.
Most definitely. This has been another exciting second segment where we get to integrate issues that have to do with the youth on the backbone and drive of the National Youth Day here in Zimbabwe. Recently celebrated, and of course, hats off to all the heroes, the young people who continue to thrive for more. For now, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with the third and final segment here on The Headliner. Don't go anywhere.
Once again, welcome back. This is The Headliner, and it's the third and final segment. I call it my favorite segment because it's all about the banter, and we also get to pick the editor's brain, or should we say our guest's brain. We call it the editor's choice, and curtly, the editor's choice it is.
The Headliner always brings you the third segment that always dissects, divulges, as well as dissipates issues to do with the trending story of the day. And of course, in studio today we are joined by Fungai Jachi, who is a resident correspondent within our circuit here at ZBC. Fungai, clad in red, I must say it's still the month of love.
Yeah, definitely it is.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us on The Headliner. Please go ahead and share with us what story we are tracking today.
Okay, so the story that we're tracking today is that of the Heathcliff women. Well, so these women, as most of us know, they actually assaulted another woman whom they accused of having an affair with their friend's husband.
Allegation, or is it allegedly she is a mistress? This is what's happening. Okay, this is what is going around in the tabloids, because they assume this is the friend's husband's mistress. They're having some sort of affair. But I saw the video and it was very violent. It speaks volumes of gender-based violence. While we speak statistically, women are the biggest statistics to gender-based violence. But the irony,
tables have turned.
The irony of it is we find a group of women beating on a woman, and this is some sort of aggravated assault of sort. So talk us through, from the context of assault, from the context of the investigations that are currently happening from the police. What are they saying with regard this particular story?
Okay, so the investigations were finalized. They appeared in court and they were convicted of assault, and they were sentenced to an effective 9-month prison term.
And most definitely looking at it from the court's point of view, but let's look at the emotions and perhaps probably intent, because we go around looking and tracking some of these stories, and perhaps we've reached a conclusion. But the loyalty aspect, women and loyalty, that speaks high volumes to loyalty amongst women. And most definitely, I think it's a charge of emotions. And at the same time, how do you put that into perspective? Also, considering that one can stand in court of law, perhaps with a mitigation factor of saying, well, perhaps these women were standing up for another woman.
Well, in this case, the loyalty was misplaced, because apparently they took the law into their own hands, which did not work out well for them, because now they're paying for a crime that they committed, and at the same time as their families that are going to suffer. Because apparently the mitigatory factors outweighed the aggravatory factors. Because of course they say that they were standing up for their friend and so on, but then the court considered that what they did was so bad that they had to be punished for their crime, so that others could actually learn from it, that even if you have a misunderstanding with someone, violence is not the way to go.
Let's also bring it back to the context of the coverage of it. How did the media cover this story right from the onset, when the video started making the rounds, it circulated, and you know, a lot of people started drawing all kinds of context around it. How did the media actually cover it, and how would you actually, you know, say, in effect, when we're looking at issues of gender-based violence, what does this speak to?
Okay, so I would say that the mainstream media tried to cover the story, because they only took up the story when it was now before the courts. Like when they were arrested, that is when the mainstream media picked up the story. But then it was social media that broke the story.
Absolutely, which was bringing us to our question now. You know, the impact of social media, Fungai. How effective has it been? Especially, you're a courts reporter.
Yeah.
You continuously trek these stories inside out. Perhaps there's even more magnanimous stories that happen at courts, but just didn't surface on these platforms such as X, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or even WhatsApp. However, can you say that without the circulation of this video, perhaps there wouldn't be so much debate and spark around it, and perhaps we wouldn't even be talking about it today on the headliner?
It's so true. If it was not for social media, I think this woman was just going to be assaulted and nothing was going to be done about it. Well, in this case, we'll say thanks to social media, the crime was put out there and then the culprits got what they deserve.
So it's evidence now. So everything is evidence-based. And perhaps, Monica, perhaps you can chime in on this, because you know, evidence long back then didn't have a lot to do with videos being presented in court. I think even on an international scale, we now see you know, a very huge advancement with regards to that.
Yeah.
How effective has technology been with regards to even the judgment that comes out?
And even exposing such acts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, technology has been doing so well in terms of exposing such things that will be happening in our different communities, because back then it would take someone to actually go and report the matter to the police. But then in this instance, the police is forced to investigate some of these things because they would already have been published on different platforms. So, well, technology is actually playing a very pivotal role, because without technology, some of these crimes would just go unreported.
But how about this now, Fungai? Obviously, a crime has been committed, and we've seen so many other videos of this nature.
Yeah.
Not only these women, where we find them, you know, in the dock, 9 months, I must say, and deservedly so. It just goes to show that the law will always catch up. But we've also seen videos where we've seen men capturing certain acts. They found their spouses in you know, very compromising positions, and they then take the law in their own hands. We've also seen others taking, you know, the belt or probably some sort of shambok, and you know, they mute this on the guy. And probably is it about time that we try and fix things in society where people are taking justice in their own hands?
Yeah, like what narrative are we driving?
What are we driving? Because we're not condoning adultery, but at the same time, we do know that polygamy exists. And remember, I'm saying we're not condoning violence, we're not condoning adultery, but then I'm trying to bring to the context that in as much as women, you know, they become violent. We've seen a lot of the videos, women, you know, becoming violent when they find out their husband, their partner is having an affair, and then they actually, you know, take videos. Are we taking lessons, or are we getting somewhere in terms of trying to get society to understand that there are certain laws or certain quarters where you can actually get justice if you feel your marriage has been violated, or if you feel, you know, you're not happy?
Well, this case in point of these Heathcliff women has been maybe the benchmark. Violence does not pay. If someone commits a crime, they will eventually be arrested and probably be convicted and sent to prison. So if people should learn anything, is that violence does not pay, crime does not pay. They should just resolve their differences amicably.
Oh, yes.
But then emotions come into play, because in as much as it's easy said than done to say violence doesn't pay, but you find your partner in a very compromising situation. The emotions will run deep. They do say that it takes a very strong man to actually compose themselves.
Oh, yes.
Just as much as it takes a very decent woman to expose herself on social media doing all kinds of ungodly acts.
Oh, yes.
Or even muting violence.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Quite a very, very tough conversation that we've been trekking here on the headline. I'm most definitely excited to be catching up with Fungai Jachi on all things to do with courts, as our courts correspondent has come through in this third and final segment. Most definitely, this has been another exciting episode of the headliner. Please do make sure you catch us same time, same place here on ZBC TV. Remember to follow all our platforms at ZBC News Online. Monica?
Well, it has certainly been an engaging conversation. I wish we had touched on the false rape accusations or allegations. I'm sure we'll catch up on that on the next headliner. But Fungai, it has been absolutely fantastic, and the crew behind the scenes, as always, catch us on the headliner right here on your ZBC TV and our YouTube page. My name is Monica Chanda. Have a fantastic Friday and keep it royal.